What if you could find brand new worlds right here on Earth, where anything is possible? Same planet, different dimension. I found the gateway.
The Rewatch Podcast presents The Sliders Rewatch, dedicated to the series Sliders on Fox and Sci-Fi Channel. Join us each week as we continue crossing the Einstein-Rosen-Podolsky Bridge and find ourselves in strange new worlds. Email your thoughts on each episode to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or on Twitter @rewatchpod.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Sliders Rewatch. I'm Corey.
And I'm Rick's accent. So basically, I'll be here for a couple minutes, then I'll disappear, and then I'll come back, and then I'll be gone again, but I'll be back. Don't worry.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, well, thank you for joining us, everyone. Of course, we're discussing 2 more episodes of Sliders today, and those episodes are Net Worth and Slide by Wire. But first, we have just a little bit of by the way, because this week we got an email from Intangible. And if everybody remembers, Tom, you were talking about how Intangible was answering questions over on the Sliders.tv forum as Wade.
Yes.
And naturally, we just jumped to the conclusion that Intangible must be a woman. But it turns out
she's not.
No,
okay.
It turns out Intangible is in fact a man.
See, I didn't know that.
And yeah, he sent us over an email, and of course we'll be reading that in our Messages from Earth Prime segment. But yeah, he kind of just threw in a little postscript at the end of the email, letting us know that he's actually male. So
I didn't see the email yet, so this will be cool. I can't wait.
All right, well, getting into our first episode discussion today. The episode is Net Worth, written by Steven Stoliar and directed by Paul Lynch. And this originally aired on January 11th of Partying Like It's 1999.
He'll be doing his next Rembrandt song in one of these episodes, I'm sure. Corey will be.
Looking pretty naked there, Offie. No pad, no screen, no ret-right. So just how'd you get in here? You tell me that.
Be happy to if we could catch a word that we know.
I promise you, officer, we had no idea that we were trespassing.
Trespassing?
There you are. Rick?
Yes, I'm Rick.
And...
Rembrandt.
These friends of yours, Miss Gashon?
of course, what did you think?
Well, I thought they were like...
Offliners? No, they just tubed over from Magenta. They're not wearing rigs because they wanted to take mine for a spin.
But they said that...
Just checking to see if you were on your toes, and you were. Kind of on ours, too, there for a minute.
What do you say we try on those rigs?
Okay.
Our team experiences a slight burp in the slide yet again as it materializes within a glass wall, dumping Remy and Quinn on one side inside a building and Colin and Maggie on the other side of the wall outside. As Quinn and Remy try to find a way out, Colin and Maggie take cover as they hear voices coming. A young man, Rick, is trying to get inside the building with a key card but is attacked by a group of thugs, which Maggie and Colin try to help him fight off, but an alarm goes off and everyone scatters. Meanwhile, Quinn and Remy are almost arrested by security, but a girl named Joanne vouches for them, thinking Quinn is Rick, since she really doesn't know what he looks like and was supposed to meet him today for the first time face to face. After a close elevator ride to Joanne's place and some explanations about this world having 2 castes of people, onliners and offliners, she receives a message from the real Rick and realizes she's been duped. Quinn explains the situation and she helps him try to track down his friends and Rick. Elsewhere, Maggie and Colin, along with Rick, meet his mother, and he reveals to her that he's been using computers and is in love with a girl he met from the online world. They manage to get a message through through to each other and agree to meet. Rick and Joanne slowly learn to talk in person after so much time communicating through just online messages. The meeting is interrupted, however, as the gang shows up to take Joanne hostage, using her to get into her building, planning to rob the place entirely and use Joanne to get into even more places in the future. However, Quinn and company have tracked Joanne's whereabouts and used their technological know-how to rescue her and overpower the gang, reuniting the two lovers.
Throw back, Mom.
When the alarms went off, I thought the barbarians were at the gates.
They were, but we took care of it.
And who exactly is we?
This is Maggie and Colin. It's my mom.
Shirley. Sorry about the hard welcome, but you know how times are.
We're learning.
You have quite a place here.
I always ask myself, what would June Cleaver do? And then I do the opposite. You remember June Cleaver, son?
No, ma'am. I'm not from this town.
She was on TV back in the Stone Age. Had a son named Heaver.
Before the net chewed TV up, spit it out. Chewed us up, too.
Don't get her started.
Anyone who didn't have the money or inclination to sit staring at a monitor all their days were just thrown out with the trash. And the others, thinking they were the privileged class, were nothing but slaves to a machine. I wouldn't have one of them in here. What you got under there?
All right, so let's get into a bit of trivia here. We got a fair bit.
Yeah, so originally, Joanne says that her mom and dad are actually in Aruba on a virtual vacation rather than, having just the digijobs. So they weren't going to bother Joanne and, quote unquote Rick. They were on virtual vacation, and Remy and Quinn are like, virtual vacation? She's like, yeah, no sunburns, no mosquitoes, no tourists. It's great. And Joanne also didn't buy the Canada excuse. Someone who's actually smart and thinks Canadians actually are, hooked up. Because, he says, I'm from Canada. And Joanne says, so what does that mean? Canada's hooked up. They're wired, And then Quinn has to come up with another excuse. And he says, he's part of a sensory deprivation experiment, a new thing. So then she finally accepts it. So good on that. Colin, when he sees Rick's homemade laptop, he says something like, oh, I knew a guy back home that sort of tinkered with things too. And, okay, it was me. I like to tinker with things as well. We're like tinkerer brothers, it says in the script. I'm like, oh, it's bad. Bad line.
Yeah, I could just imagine the line delivery on that.
They explained what a cracker was to Remy because he didn't understand that term. And she says something like, a tween, an identity hacker, a fake. So they go into a little bit more about what a cracker is. Yeah, it makes sense to explain that. Joanne orders a coat. When Quinn says you bring a coat, she actually goes out to order one. And when she goes out to order the coat, rather than just use one she has, Quinn says, that Joanne reminds him of himself, back in the first season, how he was like sort of more of a loner, a recluse. He liked to keep to himself. That was kind of a neat scene there to call back to his earlier ways, before the whole series started. Yeah, that was pretty neat. And then finally, Joanne was very impressed by Maggie's independence. The way she's talking and just, not relying on anybody. She was like, wow, she's really tough. She's really independent. And then Rick explains how the monetary system, once that went online completely, anyone who wasn't online had nothing. They had no money. That's how they ended up being offliners, and onliners, the two different groups. So a little more alt history there.
Do we have, I think we might just have enough time to fit in a quick impression.
I think we do.
We got a minute. We can do this, right?
We can do it. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cue the music.
Sean Connery leads Alan Rickman and a hick into a room in the Ivory Tower.
What's all this stuff?
Oh, that's good. Digitize. We can order anything we want.
And how do you pay for all this?
Digicash. Mom and Dad work digijobs. Temporal lobe-ling REM stuff. Alan approaches a metal chair with drills on it.
And what's this nasty-looking thing?
Neural implanter for a direct uplink. MedStaff just delivered it. I'm 18 next week. That's when most folks get cabled. Sean walks over to the hick.
Only I thought maybe we should meet before.
You get cabled?
Yeah.
Because, I guess, after, you won't get around much anymore.
Your friend here doesn't seem to be up to speed on much of anything.
Oh, well, he's,
I'm from Canada.
Canadian.
And see.
Nicely done. I like that.
You like my Alan Rickman?
I kind of want to hear you say Potter.
Mr. Potter.
Very good. I like it.
Look, I just wanted to say I know how hard it is for you to be here. And I really want to get to know you.
Well, you pretty much already know all there is to know.
Online, we could go for hours. I mean, it was pretty hard for me to keep up with you.
I don't know how you managed.
Got an IQ of like 17,000.
Really?
No. I mean, not really. Mostly I'm just a rebel without a clue. But I learn pretty fast. Joanne, all the things you said to me before, you can say them to me now. Only that we're right here.
Well, your keyboard is over there, and if you just give me back my ice cream. Oh, but then your NOF, your irises haven't been scanned.
And quit the geek speak! It's me. I'm not in here. There wasn't anything we couldn't tell each other. Listen, you don't have to impress me. You just have to be here. With me in this room on this stupid, ugly bed.
What do you want to know? I've got all of the facts.
Do you think because you're online, you're plugged into the whole world? There's a difference between facts and really knowing something. Wake up! Come on, have an opinion on your own!
Hey!
All right, so getting into our discussion of net worth. All right, so the episode opens with the vortex opening in a wall, or close to a wall. It's glass.
Close to a wall, yeah.
So that densitrometry circuit isn't working so well there, Quinn.
Not so good today. Nope.
Maggie even calls it out.
Yes, she does.
That they've mentioned the densitrometry circuit before. So, yeah, it's weird. It's like the writers were just like, we know we set this up, but to hell with it.
Exactly.
Whatever. We just need a reason for Maggie and Colin to be outside and Quinn and Remy to be inside.
Exactly.
It turns out that the inside is a building called the Ivory Tower, which is a little on the nose. The rich in their ivory tower, while all the scum are outside, living the rough life.
Yes.
But, you know, it was a good enough setup, you know, this sort of like separation of class. I know they get into this online or offline thing. Maybe not so good.
Right.
But, you know, I do like this class warfare that they get set up here, especially because almost immediately they introduce the Rick character. And it shows you like him trying to get inside the building, but then these punks led by this guy called Jack show up and yeah, this whole thing ensues and shows that Remy and Quinn can't get out, Colin and Maggie can't get in, so yeah, it's a pretty good setup.
Yeah, no, it started off real good. You know, it jumps right into it pretty much. You know, you get them separated. They both have their own adventures that are going to start. So yeah, it was a good way to start off when Rick shows up.
And what do you think of Rick?
Rick, first of all, we got to call this out now because that's how I started the whole episode. What's up with his accent?
I don't know.
Seriously, it's like I was listening, like I'm watching, I'm listening, and like I hear this slight accent, and I'm like, where is that? What is that accent? And then like another scene happens and the accent is gone. And then another scene happens and then there's a different accent that comes back. It's switched so many times.
Yeah. What do you reckon his native accent is?
I couldn't even begin to tell you. Cause like part of it, I thought maybe he was like, it was kind of like a New Yorkish accent. And then I thought maybe there was a little bit of a, I don't know, like I don't even know how to describe it. I just know that it sounded like it changed a couple times. Like I'm thinking, like obviously, you know, they don't film these scenes in order. So maybe he was doing one accent on one day of shooting, you know, and filmed a bunch of scenes. And then the next time he had to shoot, maybe he forgot what he was doing and did a different accent. I don't know. But like whoever's like the continuity editor or whatever should have been watching this.
Yeah, I even got Canadian off him.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Yeah, Canadian. I could hear that
especially
too.
in the about. Canadians
Right.
get into that. It wasn't quite a boot, but it was.
Right.
Yeah, I got that inflection here or there. So maybe he's Canadian, and yeah, he's getting a bit muddled up. It was a
like,
bit rough.
what the heck? Yeah, I know. I was like, what's going on, man? Come on.
I mean, he's a nice enough guy. You know,
He
the
is.
character is pretty good, but yeah, I think that accent is. He gets muddled from
A
scene
little
to
bit.
scene. Yeah. Yeah, so Remy and Quinn get arrested inside the building, and then this girl shows up, Joanne, and she mistakes Quinn for Rick.
Yep.
Which I thought was a pretty good scene. I mean, Quinn he's on the ball and he just goes with it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he doesn't quite realize exactly what he's getting himself into. Because it gets pretty hot and heavy pretty
Oh my
quickly.
Yes, it does. And I'm thinking, okay, Quinn, you are not Rick. Obviously, you're not Rick, but yet you're going along with this and kissing the girl. It's like, come on. Be the stand-up guy, be the hero we want you to be, and just say, all right, we got to tell you the truth. I'm not Rick. Okay. So you should probably stop, sticking your tongue down my throat.
Yeah. And, we also learned that she's 17.
Right. Yes.
And
Quinn
Quinn's
is not.
what, like mid-20s, mid to late
Yes.
20s at this point. So
Yes.
yeah, it's bordering on the line there. And, the fact also that Remy's there, so they're in
Oh
the
my God.
elevator, and she's just like sort of laying into him, and he's going with
know.
it. And I'm like, wow, man, like Remy must. Oh man, I can barely stand to see people giving public displays of affection, just in the mall or something. You kind of look at them and you're like, geez, get a room or something.
Right.
To be in an elevator with someone doing that, I would so just be like. Awkward.
Well, part of it, Remy is the ladies' man. So, part of it, he's probably thinking like, yeah, go Quinn, get it.
So, yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting setup.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised she doesn't get more, I guess, pissed off when she finds out
Right.
the truth,
Exactly.
especially because of, how far she goes with Quinn there. So, yeah. And, of course, Maggie and Colin have run off with Rick. They had to get
Yes.
away from the punks. And he goes ahead and explains, the separation of class and how there's the offliners and the onliners. Now, I know this is 1999,
Right.
but I think the internet was pretty well established in 99.
Yeah.
It had passed that infancy, from the early to mid 90s, and it was getting pretty well established by 99. So this whole thing is it's done pretty poorly, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it is.
it's one of those things, like, you would expect it between, like, 1960s sci-fi or something like that. You can understand how they got their idea of the future wrong.
Right.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah, definitely.
They're always looking like 40 years in the future or something like that. This is 1999, and it doesn't seem like they're looking too far into the future, but they're trying to like incorporate maybe like a futuristic version of it. I can see some things that they got right. Okay.
Right.
I mean, when she says like, I have this digitize and we can get everything was digi. You pay with DigiCash. My parents have DigiJobs. And it's like, oh my God, that is so terrible. DigiCash is close. I mean, we have Bitcoin.
Right.
So yeah, that's actually almost kind of dead on.
I mean, I don't use Bitcoin myself.
No,
but I
neither
know it's
do
out
I.
there.
Yeah, it exists. So
Yeah.
but yeah, Digi everything. I mean, that was just put Digi in front of a word and suddenly it's futuristic and all internet-y. Ugh.
What I thought was funny in this episode and the next episode is that everything they do, like, and when they send these emails and messages, everything is so text based. You know, in both these episodes with the computers, it's like there's no like pictures or icons and things like. It's always just, it comes up as you have a mail, you know, you have a message, and it's all like these huge letters on this screen. Like it's nothing like normal messages that come through on your phone or even on your computer. It's like huge across your whole screen. It's just, I thought that was funny the way they I guess because you're filming it, you got to be able to see what the message says, I suppose.
Yeah, it's always displayed as like a huge mailbox that just
Right,
fills
yeah.
your whole screen. If that happened in real life, you'd just be like, get this damn thing off my screen. It's like when Word had that little paperclip guy that would show up, and he's like, get off my screen, I don't want to talk to you.
Clippy. No love for the Clippy. It looks like you're writing a letter. Would you like some help?
No, I don't, Clippy. Fuck off. No.
It looks like you're trying to get rid of me. Don't do that, Dave. You don't want to do that, Dave.
So yeah, it's just the whole representation of technology. It was pretty poor, and it's fun to laugh at it though.
Well, yeah. Now, who runs this world? Okay, you've got the onliners, and pretty much you get the impression that once you're of age, you're just cabled in. So you're just like jacked into the network or whatever. You get the thing in your brain, and you're just sort of like laying about, relaxing, doing whatever you do in the virtual world. And then you got like the offliners outside not doing that. So how do you do upkeep on the buildings? How do you do upkeep on the things that are running like the internet and everything that onliners need? Who does that? Like that they didn't flesh out the world quite enough, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's all well and good to have like the separation of class, but yeah, do you have janitors? Like, are the upper class people taking janitorial jobs? Like, seriously. Yeah, it doesn't quite work like that. And when she says, like, mum and dad have digijobs, she says REM stuff, which makes me think REM as in REM cycle of sleeping. So it's like,
right, yeah.
Are these jobs that they do while they sleep?
Okay.
They're just jacked in, from this cable that they get.
Right.
As they call it. They get cabled. And you can work while you sleep or something and make digicash that way. Right, yeah. So, yeah, it does seem like some of the upper class people don't actually do physical work or anything. It's all online.
Yeah, so I thought that was, it would have been nice to have some more clarification on that. It would have been nice to see more of the onliners, because all we get are her, Joanne, and the two security guards. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to see maybe a glimpse of the parents, maybe even just jacked up, back in their chairs or whatever, doing their digijobs or whatever, or more people, like more friends of hers from that building. So I don't know.
It wasn't very well developed. And the props they used weren't excellent. Her headset thing.
Right.
She kind of explains it, how she can like move her eyes to scroll and blink to click.
Yeah.
I think they make a Star Trek reference as well when Quinn asks for a keyboard, and she
Oh,
says,
yeah.
I might have like my child's computer set in the cupboard
That's
somewhere if you need a
right.
keyboard, which was a line that Scotty had.
Right. He's
When
like,
they
"Oh, a
traveled
keyboard.
back in time. Yeah.
How quaint.
Hello,
That was
computer.
Yeah, that was a great scene. She's like, just use the mouse. He picks up the mouse. Like, hello, computer. Just use the keyboard. Love that scene.
Yeah, and not to mention, like I said at the top of the show, this is the first episode of 99. What was the big movie of 99? The Matrix.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I forgot.
So they probably saw The Matrix coming, maybe, just wrote an episode based on what they thought the film was going to be about, maybe. I don't know.
You know what we have? We have a Rewatch Podcast exclusive. Now, this comes to us from iReactions. He told us about this, and it's based on conversations he's had with various people, Temporal Flux from Dimension of Continuity, Matt Huttaf from Earth Prime, and conversations that those people have had with people over the years as well. This story depends on who you talk to. Back in 1997, there was an episode list that came out, and on that episode list, there was a story called Onliners. And Temporal Flux from Dimension of Continuity apparently saw that list or whatever, talking with him and going over things again and gathering resources from other places. We have Tracy Torme remembering a story called Onliners, but doesn't remember that being from the TV show, not from the episode list, but rather being a list of ideas for the comics instead of the TV show. So yeah, because by the time season 3 came around, Torme was kind of done with Sliders. He was less interested in sort of moving away from it. So he was, focusing more on the idea for comics. And that's where he remembers the story Onliners coming from. So it's possible that maybe Temporal Flux heard about the comic story, got it mixed up maybe with the idea of the TV episodes. So we don't know. We're not quite sure. All right. Now, Matt Huttaf from Earth Prime spoke with the writer of this story, was Stoliar. So he talked with him, and Stoliar, doesn't remember writing Net Worth based on anything called Onliners at all. He just remembers writing the story because they needed this type of story. They gave him the outline or whatever, and he did it. And the season 3 producer doesn't remember Onliners as being a script at all. In production. So it sort of lends some evidence to saying that maybe it wasn't on the episode list, but rather just the comic idea. So, and it's also possible that Stoliar has just forgotten that the script was originally called Onliners and then reworked into, Net Worth. We don't know. We don't know what the real story is because it's been so many years, people forget, the writer has gone on to do amazing other things and many, many, many stories. So it's possible you forget things after a couple of years and you don't remember where the idea came from. So yeah, this was apparently around back, a couple of years ago. Now, why is all this important? Why does this even matter? If you go back to 1997, okay, we're talking season 2, season 3. This was possibly originally supposed to be a Quinn and Wade story. Supposed to be a story not with Rick and Joanne, but Wade in the Joanne role, Quinn in the Rick role. And they were going to meet their doubles instead of Rick and Joanne meeting. So we were going to have our Quinn Prime and our Wade Prime meeting, digital, online Quinn and offline Quinn and online Wade. So that was what the original idea was they were thinking was going to be. What do you think about that?
That's interesting, yeah, because we did have a Quinn and Wade story back in, what was it, season 2? The Young and the Relentless, yes. I think it was called.
Yep.
Where they were the young couple, and Wade was like a cutthroat business person who killed the old Quinn. So yeah, I think that could have been really interesting, to play up that Quinn and Wade connection a bit more by having another episode with the two of them.
The whole Quaid idea, right here. And see, now, if you think of it that way, as Joanne being Wade and Rick being Quinn, it clears up a lot of the issues that you might have with this episode. Because besides Rick's accent, I don't know, something about his character and Joanne's character, when they finally meet, it felt so, I don't know, forced. It felt like I didn't feel like there was a connection there between the two of them. Like it felt just unreal to me. But when you think about maybe it was supposed to be Quinn and Wade, with what we know and how much we wanted them together, you could see how that meeting finally would be really, really cool, with all the backstory that we know. The whole thing in the elevator with getting hot and heavy, that makes even a little bit more sense there too, because we know Quinn likes Wade and Wade likes Quinn. So it just, it really does fit.
Yeah, no, I really like that too, because, as the episode goes along, we learn more about Rick and the fact that he's actually cobbled together this laptop.
Right.
And that's what he's been using to communicate with Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that would make sense for Quinn, Yeah, maybe he's in the offliner life, because then they don't meet a certain wage bracket or whatever, It seems like the more poorer class are the ones who are offliners. But he's still he's got that smarts that we know Quinn has, and he is, he would have cobbled together some sort of tech in order to mingle in that onliner lifestyle.
Exactly. And the more I read about this, iReactions has this special Quinn Wade, I don't know what to call it, exclusive thing that he's gonna put on the forums when this episode comes out. He's gonna put it up on the forums, probably some of the stuff that we have in our emails, and it's really like it goes through the episode. I think this is what he's going to put up, talking about how these different scenes would be with Quinn and Wade in the separate parts. And I was reading it and I was like, oh, I want this episode so much to have been happening in, season 2 or season 3 even, like it would be so good. It would be so awesome.
Yeah, I think it would have worked nicely.
Yes.
And they keep weaving in this thing with the what they call the scavengers, but they're the punks, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty good as well. They get in contact through his laptop. They get the message out to Quinn and Remy and Joanne, and then the punks come in. So they need to get back to Rick's place. And while they're doing that, like Rick's got all these like booby traps set up to make sure that the guys can't follow him. Again. Right. He's a pretty smart guy. And we get to meet his mother. And I kind of like this character. Her name's Shirley. And she always, it's like that parent thing to embarrass you, It doesn't seem like his father's in the picture. So Shirley has to do the dad jokes. And her dad joke is, I just think what June Cleaver would do. And then I do the opposite.
Oh,
she just keeps saying it. And you can just see on his face, he's so embarrassed.
She hammers that one home.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with June Cleaver. I looked it up, though. Mm-hmm. And June Cleaver is the mother from Leave It to Beaver.
Oh, yeah. No, I knew that. I watched some of those episodes as a kid. I mean, I didn't watch them when they were first run. I watched them on Nick at Night, so.
But June Cleaver was like that, that idyllic mother.
Oh, yeah.
50s character, Mm-hmm. So you can see what she's saying. Like, she is so not your typical housewife mother person.
Definitely not.
She's down and dirty, she probably has like a job as a mechanic or something like that.
You know what else is interesting? Rick's dad is not in the picture, but his mother is, right? You could sort of see the parallel because Quinn's dad wasn't in the picture, but his mother was. I'm just saying, it could have been Amanda Mallory there,
Interesting. I like it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of parallels here. A lot of parallels.
Yeah. So you didn't like the character of Shirley?
She kind of annoyed me. That I didn't like that joke. I was like, oh my god. So she got on my nerves. I could see where it's kind of comical, but it did not make me laugh. And I don't remember seeing this episode originally. So yeah, even on first viewing, this past week, I'm like, whatever. It's fine.
Oh, well.
Whatever, Mom.
We can't agree on everything. I liked it, you didn't, so. But, so we cut back to Joanne, and she finally pieces it together that Rick is an offliner. But Remy sort of helps her come to terms with this. Reminds her of, like, all the conversations they had. He's still the same person just because he's an offliner, That's really nothing. And it's like you said, it kind of, like when it comes around with the two of those, it does seem a little off, really.
Yeah.
Because,
awkward.
Well, I just think because of the way she reacted with Quinn, like he really gave her nothing. He was just using her as a means to get away from these security officers, and she was all over him. But when she actually meets Rick, she's like, okay, I'm like super nervous around you. I don't know what to say to you, blah, blah, blah.
I guess you could make the argument that at that point now, she knows he's an offliner, so it's kind of like gross to her, I guess, that he's an offliner. So maybe that, you could argue it that way.
Yeah. And yeah, the chemistry wasn't very good together. No. When they're having, a conversation, she's drinking root beer, and so, and I'm just like, yeah. And then, of course, the punks show up again and like drop the whole room on them. Yeah. And I'm like, seriously, like they all survive that? Like, come on.
I don't get the punks. So they just wanted to go into the ivory tower and steal the stuff and sell it, or what was their goal? Like, what was their end goal? Because that's it's kind of short-sighted. Like, let's go in and steal all her stuff and sell it, and then that's it. It's like, what? Was that really the end goal for you guys?
Yeah, he's like, we'll strip this tower bare. He's like, yeah, like all the poor people on the outside are going to buy all this expensive stuff. Like,
exactly.
What?
Like they want.
You're going to sell it back to the rich people who can just order more stuff anyway. Yeah. So yeah, it does seem like a flawed plan. Yeah. The whole thing about the garbage chute as well.
Yes.
I didn't think made sense. Like, I know they need to get out of the building somehow, but if they go out the garbage chute, then why doesn't that mean that all the people outside couldn't go up it in the first place?
Yeah, that comes up in Messages in Time, and it's a very good point. It's like, why couldn't they just go, like, they can scan themselves into the building. Why didn't she just scan them out of the building?
Yeah.
You know, because she can come in as she wants to. Why can't she go out as she wants to? She's not really a prisoner. It's her choice to be in there. You know, it's her parents' choice. But her parents are doing their job, so they won't know if she goes outside. So what's the big deal? Why couldn't she just say, all right, let's go out the front door, like the same way we come in later, you know?
Yeah, and when the punks kidnap her to go inside, they do just literally go to the door.
Yeah,
and open it. It's like that weird graphic of the glass disappearing, but still, yeah, it's a way in. Why wouldn't that also be the way out? It makes no sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I get, like, they did the thing where they're like, oh, we shut off the garbage chute thing now so we can crawl up it. I'm like, is there really, like, wind or something in there that would stop you from crawling up that thing? If you're like, if you really wanted to get in that building, you should be able to get up that garbage chute just fine.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a little off. And you're right. Like, once they're in the building, their plans for what the whole thing is makes no sense. And, of course, you know, he gets trapped in that cable machine and that's it. Like, what, they just boot him out on his ass now?
Yeah, exactly. It was just, you know, it was just weird. It was like a weird ending. It wasn't the best ending. I mean, yeah, Joanne goes offline and, you know, settles down with Rick at his mom's house. And I'm sure her parents are going to have something to say with that after our sliders leave, you know?
Yeah, whenever they wake up from their job.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's basically, this is the Romeo and Juliet story, you know? It's that just redone. And it was okay. I mean, I don't know. I like, in retrospect, like I watched the episode, did the notes and everything. I'm like, yeah, it was all right. But like after I got iReaction's email and seeing that it was supposed to be a Quinn and Wade story, I actually enjoyed that aspect of it a lot more. You know, like I just like reading over his notes and everything. I'm like, oh, that would have been cool. Oh my God, that would have been awesome. So yeah, I don't, the episode is okay, but I like the potential for what it could have been a lot more, which, you know what? I think we say that a lot about Sliders episodes.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. The story and the setup for it were good. I kind of like the characters, you know, despite Rick's accent there. I really like the Shirley character. I know you didn't like her.
Right.
But yeah, it really just, at the end there, you know, the dismount, it's not so clean, unfortunately. But as far as a filler episode goes, I was like, yeah, could have been worse, really. But
it could have been, yes.
I do love that behind the scenes thing. Thinking of this episode, placing alternate Quinn and Wade into the roles is it would make it interesting for a second watch if I go back to watch it again and think of it in that
and like by doing it that way, it gets back to what Sliders is all about. Alternate dimensions being like so close to what you know, or people that you know, but different because of the choices they made. You know, that's what I like.
And now another episode of That's Random with Remy.
Shirley Browder. She was 7. I was 8. Took her to the St. James and John's Demolay Halloween dance. She went as Cinderella.
And you went as Prince Charming.
No, that year I went as Ming the Merciless. Mustache wouldn't stay on.
This has been another episode of That's Random with Remy. Alright, so getting into our second episode discussion today. The episode is Slide by Wire, written by Chris Black and directed by Robert A. Hudzik. Hudzik. And this originally aired on January 18th of 1999.
I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, Captain Beckett. You were outside the wire, too. Steal a smoke, walk the dog, ordered a pizza, eloping. Your behavior couldn't have had anything to do with the break-in tonight.
Actually, it did. I noticed some intruders on the base. 3 men and a woman. They were breaking into the lab. I tried to stop them.
Yes, a guard was assaulted near the quantum translocation lab.
Is he all right?
Took a nasty blow to the head, remembers being jumped, not much else. I don't need to remind you that with the Soviets on the rise again, we are on heightened alert. I've just received word that the Joint Chiefs have rescinded the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Suspected spies may now be shot at my discretion.
Good man.
See the captain to her quarters.
We start out in a high-security building at the end of a slide, seeing Maggie attack several uniformed men before finally making her way outside and towards Quinn, Remy, and Colin, ready to slide. As they vortex out, another Maggie runs up, despondent at being left behind, and it's then we realize the wrong Maggie slid. Finding themselves in a dimension that shuns technology and kills anyone who possesses it, Quinn and company notice the change in Maggie, this militant Maggie suddenly being more carefree, happy, flirtatious, and they theorize perhaps she has finally dealt with the death of her husband. Eventually, Remy stumbles onto the truth, seeing her neural implant, but before he can warn the others, militant Maggie clocks him good and turns him in for possession of tech, the tech being the timer. Meanwhile, Maggie Prime is dealing with not only meeting up with a double of her husband, Steven Jensen, who it turns out has a strange relationship with her there, but also with a hard-nosed colonel who has been pushing militant Maggie and her co-pilots to the brink of exhaustion, using their minds to pilot fighter planes because no mere human could control these ships manually. When a failed experiment kills militant Maggie's co-pilot, the colonel states they will push the project ahead to the next level, which is taking pilots and connecting their decapitated heads/brains to computers, which will then take over as the pilots of the planes. Maggie Prime appeals to her husband to stop it, telling him of her alternate dimension origins, but he has his doubts, which are quickly put aside when Quinn, Remy, Colin, and militant Maggie return, having saved Remy from certain death via an awful speech delivered with a terrible accent. Stephen concocts a ruse that militant Maggie has died on the operating table, getting the colonel off their backs, and our sliders slide.
These people built a whole religion based on their fear of technology.
El Diablo, the devil.
What happened to that man?
I don't know, but that was a radiation symbol on that door.
Is there any danger?
I really don't want to stick around to find out.
Yeah, but we've got 32 hours here.
Better put that away. Keep it out of sight.
Yeah, you're right. We don't want to tick off old El Diablo.
Hey, they've got a band. And there was no cover charge. Come on, Cue Ball, let's dance.
I don't dance.
Oh, come on, don't be shy. Let's boogie.
I'm just not very good.
It's not about being good, baby. It's about being fearless. Come on.
Okay, so we just have a couple of little bits of trivia.
Yeah, a little bit. Originally, what happened was Chris Black, the writer, he wanted to resolve the whole Maggie husband angle because she's never really dealt with it on camera. And Chris Black was irritated with the whole Maggie flirting with Quinn right after they slid, flirting with Carlos in that one snake episode.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So he's like, let's really deal with this. Let's write an episode and dealing with this. And of course, Peckinpah, and Bill Dial said, "Oh, more Maggie? Yeah, let's do that. Definitely." So yeah. Now you may have noticed, of course, this is not the original actor for Steven Jensen. It was someone else. And the reason that they got a different actor was because Sliders was so late in casting for this episode. So by the time they got around to it, the original actor had already booked other gigs, other acting gigs, so they couldn't get him. So they just recast him with this guy.
Oh, there you go. So the original actor was going to come back. They made the effort to try and do it, but just missed out. All right. Well, since we only had a little bit of trivia, I think we could maybe just fit in a quick impression.
Okay. Are you going to do another Alan Rickman?
I think so. Why not?
Okay. Okay. Good. All right.
Okay. Cue the music.
Sean Connery and Alan Rickman are at a fruit stand.
What do you think this is?
It's blue.
Well, we'll take 2. Thank you.
Sean pays for the blue fruit and tosses one to Alan.
Feeling better.
Oh, sure. Nothing to worry about. Get spit out of a wormhole, you swallow a couple tankards of the local grub, put it in your stomach, and look out. How come you and I never got together?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Between fighting Cro-Mags, trying to find my home world, I guess there isn't much time for dating.
But you've thought about it, right?
Sean, we're good friends.
We could be more.
There are other things to consider.
Christopher Walken and that hick? We're the leaders, Alan. It's right that we're together.
Sean, we're a team.
We might not always be. Think about our life, sliding from world to world. Who do we have besides each other? Do you want your life to be a series of one-world stands? Oh, man. Sean leans in for a kiss. Am I interrupting something? Just checking out the local produce. Sean takes a bite of the blue fruit. Juicy.
And scene.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man, I was biting my tongue right in the middle there.
That was good. That was good. Oh, boy.
What went wrong?
We're not sure. The flight control unit was completely shorted out.
You mean the pilot?
You seem pretty shaken up about this.
You don't. This wasn't just a piece of hardware you thrashed today. Some spark plug you can just replace. It was a man. That's his bunk you're sitting on. He had a wife and kids before you turned him into some flying freak show.
He made his choice, just like you.
Yeah, if I was the flight control unit whose brain you'd fried, how would you feel, huh?
Why are you doing this? You've already made yourself dead to me, Maggie. Now you want me to care? You want to know how I'd feel if this was you? Relieved. At least then I wouldn't lie awake every night wondering why you picked this over me. I don't care about the Russians anymore. About the arms race, about fighting the good fight. Why do you think I set up the quantum translocation lab? Figured there had to be a world out there that wouldn't do this to us.
Maybe there is.
All right, so getting into our discussion of Slide by Wire. Now, the first thing I've written here, this may be one of the best openings all season.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Very quick. Gets right into it.
Yeah, I think I praised it last week when we were talking about Mother and Child. Where they opened like right in the middle.
Yep.
Of stuff going down, like they were running from the Cro-Mags. Just get right into it. This one, it's just like Maggie going into the men's room, knocking people out, stealing stuff, and you're like, man, what the hell is going on here?
Exactly.
She runs out, they're ready to slide, she almost misses it.
Yeah, it was really, action packed, and like because you don't realize until, after they slide that you were watching the wrong Maggie this whole time, which is cool.
Exactly. And then the whole thing is ruined by our Maggie running up and stretching her arms out and screaming, no! God, that was just...
It's kind of equal to Wade's scream when she thought Quinn had died at the end of season 1.
That's right.
The two of them together, what a pair.
Yeah. I mean, that whole opening scene had everything going for it until they had Carrie West screaming at the skies like that.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm saying it right now. It's definitely the best opening of any episode this season.
It was good.
Whether or not the whole episode was good, well, let's get into it. The old Maggie is very similar, but she's a bit eccentric. And I don't think it's as bad as like the old Colin we saw on
Right.
Lipschitz episode, like where it was like so obvious he wasn't the right person. But they come through the wormhole and she's excited to see horses and stuff like that. So I think they sort of look at her a bit strange, a bit sideways about how she's acting. But you can understand how they could mistake her for not being their Maggie.
Oh yeah, it's very subtle. I mean, she's very excited to be free from that world, and like they said, considering that they mentioned her husband, in Mother and Child when they were talking about having kids. So, they could be reasoning that, she's been thinking about her husband. Maybe she's dealt with it now, and she's feeling good. She's ready to finally move on. She's healed. So it makes sense the way they come about to that conclusion.
And I think Kerry Ward does a pretty good job with the old Maggie. We don't praise her for her acting a whole lot, but
it was she did good.
I mean, this is a Maggie centric episode,
right?
Really, and I think she carries it pretty well throughout. But back on the world, our Maggie is captured. She's brought back into the base that we saw. And, we just learned a little bit more about what was going on there. Her being the military person that she is, she figures her best play at this point is to pretend to be the Maggie. Don't let on that she's not there, Maggie, because that's just going to get her into a world of hurt. So that's a good play. And they introduce this Captain Margaret Burke character. Now, are you familiar with the actor, Meg Foster?
I've seen her in a couple things, but not, like you have here, Masters of the Universe. I remember that movie. She played Eva Lynn? Is that what she played? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And the big one, They Live.
Right.
And, man, it's those eyes.
Yes, it is those eyes, yes.
Those blue eyes that just, man, you can't help but just look her in the eyes, hey. It's an intense look. I don't know what it is. Like, they are just like super blue, and it's like the eye color doesn't have like a border on it or something. So it's like the blue of her eyes sort of fades into the whites of her eyes as well. It's just it's an intense look, and every time you see her, They Live was a good 15 years before this. So as everybody does, she's aged a bit, but yeah.
Well, I remember her from, there was a 3-part episode of Quantum Leap. There's some episodes of Quantum Leap that are really touching. Like, they really, like, I get like a little bit dusty in here. Okay. But then there are other episodes that are really creepy that I'm like, oh, that like just gives me shivers, And she was in one that gave me shivers. And like those eyes, definitely, because her character in those episodes, it was just so like spooky, just like the way she was. I was just like, oh my God, that's just creepy. The way she just goes and down the hall, and I'm like, oh God, crazy. It actually gave me shivers when I saw that episode. So yeah, I know her from there.
Yeah, I think she's a bit underplayed here, though.
Oh, definitely.
You can tell this is just a job for her, an easy walk-on role. All she really has to do in this episode is to walk into a room and be menacing.
Yes.
And that's what she does for the whole episode. But, yeah, they lay out all this stuff, why Maggie was in there in the first place, why her alternate had the chance to swap out with her, was because that they were working on sliding technology, what they call quantum translocation.
Yes.
And so Maggie was in there trying to get a bit of stuff, probably to help Quinn get around this slide cage business or something. They don't really get into it, but
it's
whatever.
Odd that like Maggie would go in without Quinn, because Quinn would know what to look for.
True.
It's like, why send Maggie in? Because she's not going to have any idea, I mean, not really. I mean, for the story, obviously, she has to go in. But, at least she should have taken Quinn with him.
That's true. They could have come up with worse reasons, though, for her to have been in there. So I'm willing to roll with it.
Yeah.
Especially since it's a military base as well. She's got a military background, so
exactly.
It's I'm willing to let that one slide.
Yep.
And back on the next world, it's a world where people have rejected technology and reverted back to a kind of like Middle Ages kind of style. They're sacrificing anyone who possesses tech, as they call it, and their Bible is like some sort of nuclear power station manual or something, right?
Yeah, this is weird.
It was very bizarre.
It's like, I guess they didn't really explore what happened on this world, and why they used that as their Bible or whatever. It just seems like, I don't know, it seems like they would have more common sense, unless maybe there was like a nuclear, disaster or something, and then they had to start over from scratch again, and no one remembered what happened before. I don't know. It was weird to like, they would look at that and not understand what was going on.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of the Jillian of the Spirits episode.
Right.
You know, they had a burnt out timer. Quinn was on the astral plane, but they were in a world that was in the technological Stone Age.
Right.
And it was, in fact, illegal to have tech.
Well, yeah, but see, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and here, you know, with the old Maggie having all this tech in her body.
Right.
And not being able to sort of keep her edge, you know, she's constantly putting this chip on her neck and stuff like that, trying to balance herself out. But is this really going to work in the long run for her in a world that is very anti-tech?
Yeah, it's like the whole anti-tech thing. I get it if they're anti-tech, but these guys, they're not just anti-tech. It's like they don't understand, like, at least in Jillian of the Spirits, they understood technology. They just knew it was illegal to have it. In here, they don't even understand really, you know, technology. They don't understand that this Bible that they have is not a Bible. It's an instruction manual about, you know, safety in radiation and stuff like that. So it's more of a backwards world than the Jillian of the Spirits world.
Yeah, it is. It's not as well defined as that Jillian of the Spirits episode.
Yeah, the whole going back to the Middle Ages thing was like, wow, I don't know. It seemed odd to me. Like just having more alt history is always good because it just makes you, you know, get into it more. Like it makes you more of a believer. You know, it's easier to enjoy it that way for me.
Yeah, it's more that we're seeing the outcome of an alt history rather than actually getting the story behind how it happened.
Right.
Which, you know, we kind of do get the old history back on the other world. It turns out that these people are at war again with the Soviets, the Russian Soviets, and they've developed jets that are unmanned pretty much. And that's where all the tech in the body comes from. They can jack the pilot directly into the plane, and they can fly the plane from the safety of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually kind of a bit grotesque because the more tech that they get in them, the less human they're becoming in a way, you know?
Yes.
The alt Maggie explains that it even stops you from having automatic function of your body, you know?
Yep.
Your brain forgets to tell your heart to beat or your liver to function or whatever.
Yeah,
and
crazy.
it's the jacking into the plane that sort of replaces those automotive functions in your body. And, you know, the big reveal of, you know, some of the more extreme pilots that they've created, you know, they're just heads in a jar.
Yes.
It's quite grotesque, but
oh,
it's very interesting. I kind of liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Maggie meets up with her husband, Stephen, who is not paralyzed on this world and looks completely different, as we mentioned. But, yeah, you know, I think it's interesting, like you said, you know, that the writer,
Stoliar, yeah.
Stephen Stoliar, he really wanted to sort of give Maggie a goodbye for Stephen. It's been a long time. You kind of wish that an episode like this might have cropped up a bit earlier.
Exactly, yes.
But, you know, it's still interesting. I kind of like the idea that we can sort of lay this to rest.
You know what was odd to me, and I don't know why they had this line in there, but when they, later on, when Quinn, Remy, and Colin get back with militant Maggie, and they contact Stephen for help, and he comes out, Remy says, Dr. Jensen, I presume? Like, what? You know this is Dr. Jensen. You met him back on the, you know, the Exodus world. So it was just a weird line. Like, it would have been good for Colin to have said that, but for Remy to say it, it just seemed out of place because he knows who Dr. Jensen is.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had the same thought when he said that. I'm like, yeah, you know this guy. I'm sure he looks completely different to the guy that you've met, but still.
Exactly. Come on,
He's
Remy.
Supposed to be the same person. So
stay in character here.
You know, but, you know, they sort of give Maggie this whole thing about reconnecting with him. She gets close to telling him everything, you know, until she's interrupted for this next phase procedure, as they put it. And, you know, that they finally get to it, that she explains to him who she is. And, you know, he lays out that whole thing about how he started the project in the first place because he felt that maybe, you know, on other worlds, this didn't happen to them, you know. She didn't get all these implants and they were still together or something like that. It was, you know, it was a bit cheesy, but still kind of an interesting sort of look at it.
Yeah. No, it was done. It was good.
So, yeah, I didn't mind it. And the whole thing with Siskin as well, her friend who was also a pilot, you know, he's in the same thing same situation as her, but he dies. And, you know, that sort of like lays on like how Maggie and Stephen can come back together, you know, like he can buy that she's having these second thoughts all of a sudden, and sort of eases him into the idea of them reuniting.
You know, it was good for Maggie, you know, like we said about her acting, she did really good when she's like talking to him and like trying to explain to him but not explain to him that he was dead to her, you know, but not in the way that he thinks, you know. Yeah, I thought it was good. Everything seemed logical, you know. It's a good logical progression.
So what did you think of the alt Maggie sort of flirting with our Quinn? Like, what did you think of all that stuff?
That is weird, because when you think about it, when they go back to the world, she's all back into Stephen again. Like at the end, they're hugging and she's devoted to him, you know, like they're holding each other and they're going to get through this together and start over and everything. And I don't know. Actually, when you think about it, it sort of fits because, you know, Maggie flirted with Quinn while she was married to the Stephen that we knew back in Exodus. And now she's flirting with Quinn here, even though she knows she's married, or not married, but they were together at one point in the other world. It fits. It does fit. I think it you know, it's all good. It all is part of her character, you know. It's nothing surprising, really.
Yeah, I know that, like, we've sort of said, like, we don't really like the Maggie-Quinn connection that they try to set up here or there.
Right.
But this sort of gives them permission to explore that without actually exploring anything, because it's not our Maggie.
Exactly. But apparently this Maggie is just as bad as our Maggie at flirting with people while she's married. So that's what I'm saying. It fits because that's what Maggie does, apparently, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, she's going through all these withdrawal symptoms and stuff. She really doesn't want to go back to her world. She doesn't want to go back to this thing. I thought it was interesting that, like, she admits that she did this to herself, but, you know, she's being very selfish by sort of, you know, taking their Maggie's place and trying to deceive them. She turns in Remy for having tech.
Yep.
It's Remy's fault for carrying around the timer, really. So.
Exactly. Come on, Remy. Just leave it in the Chandler Hotel like normal, you know?
But, yeah, you know, when they go to save him and Quinn comes out and does his whole speech.
Oh, gosh, yeah. It was good for comedic effect.
Yeah, you know, I think, we've been saying, like, Jerry O'Connell's been sort of waning a bit on the acting, but I thought him coming in here and trying his best to lay on some theatrics, I thought it was quite funny. He didn't do a good job of it, but really I didn't think he was supposed to. It was supposed to be a good thing. And then as they slide off the world and they look at him and they're like, Quintar, like, what are you talking about? And he says, hey, I don't have writers. And I was like, ooh, sick burn on the writers, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think all in all, it was an all right episode. They get back, they save Maggie and reunite Maggie with her husband. Yeah, you know, as far as like a Maggie-centric episode goes, I thought Kerry Wood did a good job. So
yeah.
It was a pretty good episode, in my opinion.
Now, what I'm wondering is, like, at the end of the episode, our guys slide out. Why not take them with them to the next world? Because in this world, Maggie's going to have to she's going to have to go, like, under witness protection or something. And, like, Steven's not going to be able just to retire or quit his job there because, like they said, he's part of this, you know, and, you know, you could be seen as a traitor, you know, at this point. So, like, it'd be safer for them to take them with them to the next world to be completely free of that world's issues and the captain or colonel, you know?
Yeah, exactly. She's got, like, untold amounts of money worth of tech installed in her body. You know, they don't seem ill opposed to killing people. I mean, they're cutting off people's heads and putting them in jars. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Are they really going to be able to escape this military program?
Yeah.
It is a little off.
There's a little bit, but still, yeah, not a bad episode.
Yeah, they did pretty well here.
Fools! Don't you know who this is?
No! And the same may be said of you!
This is Remilio! Mighty wizard in league with El Diablo. And with this devilish device that gloweth so wickedly and devilishly.
Indeed. All the more reason to burn him!
No. Technology is just a tool. Neither good nor evil. It depends on how you use it. Like the butter churn. It can produce the sweet, buttery goodness, or it can produce the sour milk of funkiness. What the hell with this? My name is Queen Tar. And now, I will destroy you all!
All right, so let's get into some messages in time.
All right, so for this episode, people were wondering because they couldn't remember. Is that a new guy playing Jensen? Because they weren't sure. You know, they were like, I think it's a new guy, but I don't know. I haven't seen the episode in a while. Can't remember.
Yeah, they would. I mean, like, you and I have been watching this 2 episodes a week for a few months now, so we can remember. But...
Exactly. So they were just wondering about that. They were wondering, where are the last few episodes? Because there's only like 6 more episodes left. And all they've been seeing, I guess, were reruns back when this was airing. They just kept putting reruns after reruns. For some reason, they were saving the last 6 episodes for a certain airing. I don't know why, but that's what a lot of people were talking about. So many reruns. So they were happy to finally get this new episode. They liked the episode. A lot of people said Maggie did a good job with her acting, like we did.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Someone asked, don't you think it would be fun to have a computer in your head? That's what one person said. And everyone was kind of disagreeing, saying, I don't want people in my head like that. And this, and they said this is how the Borg started, you know.
This is how Skynet takes over.
There you go. Someone said they liked the idea of the primitive world was, you know, kind of peaceful, you know, without the technology, but then the advanced world with all the technology was not very peaceful. They thought that was a good contrast, and yeah,
well,
I agree.
I don't know. On that world, they were throwing people in a nuclear reactor, so.
Well, as long as you don't have tech, you know, you can live out your life peacefully. So
sure.
So no iPhones for you. They said also, and this makes a very good point, you know, they're throwing people into that radiation chamber or whatever it is. The priest should be showing signs of radiation poisoning because he's not wearing protective gear or anything like that. He's just opening the door, pushes them in. Some of that radiation is going to get out and get on him. So
good point.
Yeah, good point. All right, so messages in time for net worth. They said the gang looks a lot like rejects from A Clockwork Orange. So
right. Yeah.
Gotta agree there.
With all the paint on the eyes and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They said once again we're on a relatively empty world. You know, like it's abandoned. You know, of course it's the back lot. You know, at the studio. It's like it's a devastated world once again. You know, where is everyone else? Like they really did not hire a lot of extras for this. Like if you think back to some of the other episodes in the first season, even the second season, there are a lot of extras. There's a lot of things going on, like in the background and people milling about, but not on this world. Once again, it's just our guys and the episode's main characters. It's like
that's true. Yeah, I think you commented that really all we see is Joanne and those 2 security guards.
Exactly.
They talk about tubing over from Magenta, and you always see those tubes seem to be working. So, like, where are all the people who are tubing between all these buildings?
Yeah, because those tubes are going pretty fast.
Yeah, invisible people going to places we don't know.
Exactly.
Where's Magenta? I don't know. It's over there somewhere.
They said in this episode, or they said originally, Romeo and Juliet, it was the family that keeps the lovers away from each other. And in this one, it was the society, the actual way society was set up that kept the lovers from each other. So they liked that twist. They said it was a good story, but it just kind of missed the mark. It didn't quite hit it the way it should have. And again, I think if it was a Wade and Quinn story, it would have hit it really well. Like we said earlier, why the garbage chute? Just scan out. You know, that's what some of the people were talking about back then. Why do you have to go down the garbage chute? Then someone else said that, you know, there's that quote, that famous quote about how all the stories have already been written and everything else is just variations on those. I forget what the actual quote was, but they said something like that. And he said, you know what? This episode proves it, that all the stories have already been written, but there have been better versions of this story before. They didn't really like it. They said, this is not good. Not good. Someone said the gang leader looks like the Clockwork Orange guy, but they had turned away from the screen for a second when he first appeared, and when he came on and he started talking, they said, "Is that Rickman?" Because they heard his voice, and they looked back. They're like, "No, please tell me it's not Rickman." So people were saying, well, this was an okay episode. It was at least better than Just Say Yes. So there's not exactly a ringing endorsement, but an endorsement nonetheless. And then someone said, and this guy says he was the victim of online romance. I understand he's a little bitter about what happened, but I see his point. Like when she first meets Quinn and starts kissing on him, I'm like, that's not how things go when you meet someone. That's a little much. I mean, unless they were really having some intimate texting encounters or whatever. I don't know. It seemed a little bit much.
A victim of it too.
Yeah, that's what he called himself, a victim of online romance. Which, you know what? I always say, eHarmony worked for me. I met my ex-wife on eHarmony. The woman who would be my ex-wife, I met on eHarmony. So, works for me. I don't consider myself a victim, though. So,
you were just meeting the future ex-Mrs. Tom.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was doing.
All right. So, messages from Earth Prime. Like I mentioned, we got an email from Intangible. Did you want to take the email? Or...
Sure. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay, because I've not read this, so I'm very interested to hear about this. I meant to send this to you after watching the last episode, but apparently I got the wrong email address. Oops. Anyway, thanks for the shout-outs. You were asking on your show about where I'm role-playing Wade. I have to say that a Sliders tabletop roleplay would be an awesome thing to do. The self-contained adventures would make for great mini-campaigns. I agree. And there are certainly role-playing systems out there that have a more sci-fi bent to them that could be adapted for something like that. Well, that's cool. Sadly, it's nothing so involved. The kind of role-playing I do used to be known as PBEM, or play by email. It's also called interactive storytelling, which is probably a better description of what it is, to be honest. Essentially, it's less about dice rolls and statistics. The only D20s I own are decorative. Always wanted to play D&D, but likewise could never get into it. It's more about crafting an interesting story in words, kind of like writing a collaborative fanfic where each writer writes only one character and everyone reacts to other characters' actions spontaneously rather than having a pre-planned plot. It's a lot of fun. Oh, that sounds interesting. As for whether this is merely a cover story for the fact that I actually am in contact with a dimension-traveling Wade, and she wanted to make her thoughts known on Sliders.tv without fear of being exposed to ridicule, well, you have to admit that would be a clever ruse, definitely. But I'm afraid I'll have to refrain from comment. After all, if it were the truth, I couldn't exactly blow her cover, could I? So you'll have to simply make up your own minds. I like that.
Oh, I knew it. She's definitely there, whispering in his ear, telling him what to write.
I'm jealous, I always wanted to. I always had a crush on Wade. Send her my way. By the way, I reviewed you on iTunes. We got a review from iTunes, but they have a UK account with them, so I think it only shows up in the UK iStore or Apple Store, whatever it's called. I'm not a fan of iTunes, as you may be able to tell. Loving the show as ever, and wishing you all the best, Intangible.
Yeah,
cool.
And then, of course, that's Intangible. Put a PS on this that said that he's in fact a man and not a woman, so you can understand why he doesn't actually role play as well.
Right.
Maybe doesn't pull off the look quite so well.
Right. Now that's pretty cool. I like the idea that the interactive fiction and play by email. Had not heard of that. That's pretty cool. That's neat. I wonder, do they? Let me go on and ask. Do you guys ever post these up for reading after the fact, after you're done with a story, or is it just for yourself, or do you guys not like to share those, or because that might be interesting to see and read. I don't know if that's something that can be done or not. That's cool though. That's pretty neat. We'll have to, I think, can't you log into the different iTunes stores? Maybe we should do that and see if we can see the different reviews from other countries maybe.
Yeah, I think I've heard of a thing where you can sort of send like your podcast RSS feed to the website and they can collate all your iTunes reviews.
Oh, cool.
From all the other international stores and stuff like that, because I don't see a lot of American ones, from my Australian account. I'm sure you don't see any Australian ones. From your side, I don't know. Right. I don't even know if we have any Australian listeners, to tell you the truth. Right. But if we do, let us know. I'd like to know you guys are out there. But yeah, so obviously, I guess we wouldn't be able to see the UK store iTunes reviews either. But yeah, maybe we should look in and see if we've had any other international ratings and reviews, so we can, we can read them on the Messages from Earth Prime segment. We'd hate to miss anybody out. All right, so yeah, thanks for that email, Intangible. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for answering our questions. We love it. And keep up the great work with your Wade answers over on Sliders.tv.
Definitely. Yeah, let us know how Wade, what Wade thinks of this idea of the net worth being a Quinn Wade story. Maybe she has some insight there.
That'd be cool. Okay, so next week's episodes are Data World and Way Out West.
I thought we just had Data World, didn't we?
Yeah, I know.
All right, well,
we're just repeating ourselves. I guess we'll find out. I have a feeling I know which episode Way Out West is, so may have something to do with Cro-Mags.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so...
Cowboy Cro-Mags? Oh, boy. Is it really? Because I don't remember.
I don't want to spoil it for you.
Okay, all right.
But I'm pretty sure, yes, it's...
oh, boy.
It'll be this Cro-Mag episode with cowboys and stuff.
We're not jumping the shark. All right, anyway... That's it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast and follow the show on Twitter at rewatchpod. You can also visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has some of our favorite links there, such as Dimension of Continuity, Earth Prime, and the active forum over at sliders.tv.
And as always, you can write us an email or record a voice message and send it to therewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. Helps us out tremendously. And hopefully, like I said, we can track down some of our more international ones if we've got some and read them out in our Messages from Earth Prime segment. All right, well, thank you for joining me again, Tom.
Of course.
And I will just say, until next time, I just ask myself, what would June Cleaver do? And then I do the opposite.
Oh, Mom, we got to slide.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with NBC Universal, St. Clair Entertainment, Fox, or Sci-Fi Channel. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes, as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Copyright 2015, The Rewatch Podcast.
Sliders.